Welcome to the Parts Girl Podcast, powered by PartsEdge. We are excited to present our Fixed Operations Summer Camp Series. Your host, Kaylee Felio, will be joined by industry experts to discuss parts inventory control, special orders, lost sales, manufacturer programs, customer retention, and technicians. You're going to get it all in this special series.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Parts Girl Podcast. I have Ellen back on the show. Welcome, Ellen.
Hello, Kaylee. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah. So tell us real quick who you are, who you're with, your title, your role, and we'll dive right into I'm not sure what we're gonna call this session, but we're talking about obsolescence.
Beautiful. I'm Ellen Haney. I'm the parts manager at Jeff Schmitt Nissan in Beaver Creek, Ohio. I've been doing the parts managing for about 3.5 years. I've been in the industry or the actual dealership world for about 5. And then I've been working in inventory stuff since I was like 14 because my dad and one of my mentors has been doing this for about 30 years.
Oh, I love your story. And if anyone wants to hear more about her story, that podcast was about a year ago. But today we're going to talk about obsolescence, and I'm really excited to kind of change up the whole direction of the podcast and really just honing in on topics and getting parts managers, getting fixed ops directors in on the show to hopefully people listening can take away from you and learn, because that's the whole reason is we listen to these things to learn and grow. So yeah, I'm excited. So let's start with just what are the 3 causes of obsolescence? A lot of people may know the answer to this, but it's good to really dive into that.
So what I've noticed mostly, at least in our dealership world, we're looking at a lot of special order parts. That's one of the biggest causes of obsolescence. One of the other ones that I've noticed is sometimes either a misdiagnosis or by a technician or ordering parts just in case. Instead of focusing on what some manufacturers have determined as single-use parts. It's like, well, I think it's this, but I'm not positive, so maybe we'll order both. And that causes an issue in the follow-up process because some of it is not exactly what should have been ordered to begin with. And the parts department has to unfortunately go based off what the technician is saying that they do in fact need. But and then was that 2 or 3?
Well, you said special orders, which misdiagnosed, and then ordering parts just in case. And I hear that all the time. I think the biggest one is the just in case. Would you agree?
Mm-hmm. I would probably agree with that too. Yes. I've also noticed that in order to kind of combat that, on the flip side of this, and to combat something like that, is to give technicians who you have sent through training and have noticed that they are very straightforward and know what the process is of the replacement to be helpful in determining whether or not the parts are going to actually be needed.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so what are ways that dealerships can, or parts people can combat that? Because I think if you just flat out, I'm not gonna order that, you're causing friction for techs, and that's the last thing parts people want with techs and vice versa. So how do you work through that with techs and really getting them to understand, like, if we order these just in case parts, you're causing a lot more that leads to obsolescence, right?
Yeah. And in our previous conversations before, Kaylee, I've honed in a lot on developing relationships with technicians. And that's not just technicians, it's with your managers, it's with your advisors, everyone around, and making an open door policy to make sure that no one is afraid on either side to ask questions. One of our big things on our parts department side is that we'll take a lot of pictures out to technicians, or we'll conversate with them directly and have them come up and pick out the parts or kind of double check. Also, with my department specifically, there's a lot of technicians that'll send in bulletins and stuff like that. And so we become aware of some of the repairs as well, which isn't something that is commonly done around parts departments. But we try to kind of focus on also learning why and what technicians are looking for and what they're needing. So it's a lot of sharing the knowledge on both sides and being aware of what is commonly going on with these vehicles. And brands, I feel like in general, a lot of brands have certain repairs that they do commonly. There's some things that break significantly on certain brands of cars. So it's something to be aware of and take notes of as you're going through the process to make sure that you have exactly what everyone is looking for. You don't want to be stuck with a rack because that affects your hours, that affects your technicians, and those are your primary customers.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are. And I think that's the whole thing to get from this is that technicians are your customers. And you have to be in like a customer servant type of personality, or like what's the right words to use, like to serve them. But going back to figuring out what parts are needed, I always hear like techs just assume that parts people just know what parts to order, and it sounds like you guys really go the extra step to take pictures, and I think even probably show the techs the diag of like what you're looking at, because I don't think a lot of them even realize how complex the diagrams, the catalog, sorry, that's the word, or both, is, because it's not that simple to read. And I think they're all different.
Well, and each technician prefers different things as well. There's some technicians that know that they're rough on extra bolts. They're rough on, there's certain gaskets that are required to be replaced. Nissan, their new catalog through Microcat, actually on some new repairs, you can click on, there's a button and it'll show you all single-use parts that would be needed for that repair specifically. And it can provide you with a service manual or service bulletin. And they're actually integrating technician participation. They're encouraging technicians to have access to the catalog so that they're able to view and see what Nissan is looking for in that specific repair.
Oh, that's good. That's going to solve a lot because, and that helps with that extra just in case kind of parts. Let's go back to the misdiag. I feel like parts people can't really control that, right? Or can you?
I don't believe that we can. If there's somebody out there that believes that, please let me know so I know how to help. However, I do notice that the majority of the misdiag is sometimes you got to give new technicians an opportunity, and sometimes that may be where the misdiagnosis comes in, but a lot of it's going to be training and setting expectations. I believe from my side of it is just to make sure and double check, ask questions. I'm going to go back to the share the wealth, share the knowledge idea. Develop a relationship amongst all of the technicians as well. Every department or every service department has technicians that have been there for 20, 30 years. And there's some that are just starting out coming from school. And it's really good to encourage and create that open door policy between the younger technicians and the older technicians, just to not be afraid to ask for knowledge and assistance.
That makes sense. Yeah. And just as a parts manager, you're saying take that initiative for when a misdiag happens, that it's an opportunity to train and help, not get mad and, make people feel like they can't do their job or however it plays out. But, and then so what about, let's go back to special orders. I'm kind of going backwards. Cause that is like probably, I know we said ordering just in case is a big deal, but like special orders period, as far as the inventory health goes, that's like the leading cause of obsolescence. How do we control that? Or what are you doing to control that? Because it's going to happen.
It's always going to happen. There's always going to be a customer off the side of the street that called, ordered a part. And we do a prepaid process on all special order parts. So that helps to try to decrease the amount of obsolescence we end up getting. But we have a specific process that we operate through. And so the prepaid parts, and then once they come in, we get a notification. We notify the customers and go from there. I will say the prepaid does help, but it's not always set in stone. I've had some parts that people prepay that have been there for 5 years and before I was there. Right.
They were off.
Correct. That's exactly it. It's like just gonna be a good old write-off. But it really just the biggest thing is create a process, I believe. Just have a process that helps. And we take a lot of the responsibility on the special order parts because we're the ones that end up with them at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if the advisor calls or the BDC calls. If it's not taken care of, it's the parts department's responsibility.
I do agree that it is the parts department's responsibility. I think service advisors and technicians all need to be aware, I guess, of, how it affects everything, but essentially it falls back on parts. And then having that process, that's the whole thing, is like nothing's going to solve itself. You have to have a process in place. I want to go into manufacturer programs, because I know we deal a lot, because, you're dealing with Nissan, but at PartsEdge deals with, all the brands, because they're working with, dealerships all over. And so how can you explain, what's my question with it? Explain like the purpose and the importance for you, like as a parts manager. How do you maximize on these programs? Because there are benefits to them, and there are, I don't want to call them issues, but there are downfalls, I guess, to the programs.
So Nissan has a specific ASR program. I can see where the benefits do lie. Their reports are a little bit limited, and I would say that would be one thing that would be very beneficial in an ASR situation or a RIM situation, depending on what manufacturer you work with.
All ASR, because they're all ASR.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the issue that we have with our ASR is it started recording things not further out, but like we just recently got this system through Nissan. I would say probably in the last, I think it was like 2 years maybe. So they're working their way to try to create something. And the benefits of it really are to be able to like track your 10 months, 12 months obsolescence. But some of the issues that you run into are super sessions. Sometimes the super sessions don't get caught up on the ASRs. I've got rotors that I've continued to change, for example, and they just don't catch up. They just don't pick up the numbers. And it's just from what I've noticed is a super session change. And one of the other benefits that I see from it, though, is that you can track your seasonal parts, which is a huge thing as well. So there's a lot of things that you're going to replace in the wintertime that you're not going to replace in the summertime. So when people go back and check months no sale, that's something that they have to take into consideration. If it could go 10 months, but in that 12th month, you're going to be selling it, 50 times around because it's something that's a common failure in that vehicle. And it just kind of goes back and forth to determine what you're looking for. It's a tool, but it's not something that you should 1000% rely on, because it's still something that you have to analyze in the end.
That is, I think, the key takeaway. And that's what I hear, because I talk to parts managers all the time. And when they say they 100% rely on the ASR, they don't have to worry about inventory management because their program does it for them. That is not the case.
No, I mean... if you had anything before you got the program, it's going to create an obsolescence because it's not tracking that part number. It's not something that they've taken into consideration, or it's not something that was in there when they ran the program originally. And sometimes that'll also cause an issue.
Yeah. And I think another benefit that I think you may have mentioned is that they do protect or guarantee what they're suggesting you stock. And I think the downfall is, even though they're suggesting these parts and then they go down the categories and you eventually become obsolescence, you get to return it, but it's still like, why was it stocked in the first place? As always, my question, like, because it was suggested, but it didn't sell, but they let you take it, return it. So
yeah, I mean that at least on our side, that is something that's a benefit. But what I've also been noticing is that there's some parts that they're say we're returning them because they were old considered obsolescence from my inventory because I had them beforehand, and we return them, and the next thing you know, I get an ASR notification asking me to now stock them so that they can protect the parts when they weren't something that was protected previously.
Interesting. Why is that happening? I don't understand.
Great question.
Yeah, I think maybe even we should have a topic around just ASRs. And I think that actually is coming up in the series where we are going to focus just on ASRs. And I want to focus more on obsolescence with you. So as a parts manager, how does obsolescence, if this is going to get like real, like how does obsolescence make you feel? Because I feel like, as a parts manager, that's a really big deal. And to have it, I'm not going to answer the question for you. How does it make you feel?
It is rather frustrating. And right now in our departments, we're running into it was almost like a COVID obsolescence.
Oh,
so
okay.
There were so many parts that were getting ordered, and then we were either finding them through another dealer or something along those lines. And then it's something that we were selling, but then it was on a customer order, and it would come back off of back order, come back through, and now it's no longer protected where it would have been protected before. So we're running into a situation where there's obsolescence that is popping up that we're having to resolve in a different way because of how COVID had affected all of us in the dealerships.
So it's like really messing the data. It's like messy data.
Yes. And it's just a cluster. And right now we're using if there's any leftover money and stuff, that's what we're having to use to either move the parts or try to figure out something else to do with them. Like we're having to find creative ways to get rid of some of this, what I feel or see as like a COVID obsolescence.
Yeah, I've never heard anyone say that, but it completely makes sense. I could see that. And do you guys do any mobile service? I can't remember if you guys do mobile stuff.
Our locations do not. The Ford dealer next to us started doing that, which I feel like is so amazing because I see Ed Roberts down at Bozard Ford and all of the mobile technician stuff that they do. And I thought it was just in big cities. And I just saw one of the Ford techs over at our Mazda location. And I thought I think it's just a good idea. Like, I just think it's very interesting. And that was something that text that you and I had before and that little mini conversation, that was kind of what had kicked up that kind of idea.
Yeah. And I think this could be a whole other topic too, but mobile service is like, we got to figure this out. Because if you look at other industries, they've been doing it before COVID. So let's, and I think it could really help with obsolescence too. Like, it's a no-brainer. You just got to, the process, the process needs to be figured out, and then we got to execute.
Yep.
So with, from your experience, what would you consider like the top priority for parts managers at a dealership as your role? Just like, I know obsolescence is top priority, but like, what are some of the things that parts managers absolutely should that's their job, they need to focus on it?
I feel like parts managers' jobs is inventory management. You have your specific people, so I have my counter person, and she works with all of my technicians, my body shop. She does a lot of my parts ordering for a lot of things. But the parts manager is there to make sure that it's running smoothly and make sure that they're doing the analytical side, is what I'm thinking. You're going through your reports, you're keeping up to date, you're trying to see what else you can do, move the parts, make sure they don't become obsolescent, make sure that your people are aware of their importance in the dealership. Our parts departments are very service support roles. That is our main goal at our dealership, and it's something that is very, very important in order to, I also feel like, support the inventory management. I have someone, I'm doing the analytics, but I have a person who does my bin checks and does my warranty purging and does a lot of the maintenance back there. And I think that's very, very, very important.
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so many. I feel like I say this a lot and I don't feel like to be, but there's a lot of moving parts, not like physically, but there's a lot of little areas involved in the parts management process that I think a lot of people may not really realize. That as a parts manager, you're really facilitating and like making sure all these different things are like, I'm trying to figure out an analogy, but it's not coming to me. So help me. Wait, what is the analogy? I just feel like someone really small and they're like a mouse and they're just like figuring out and moving, like disorganizing, and
they're like little Keebler elves.
There we go. Yes. And you're like managing it all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in your opinion, what are some areas that dealerships can improve in their efforts? I was gonna say fixed operations, but we could just focus on just parts. Like, what are you seeing talking to other dealerships and, your connections? Where can we improve?
What I've been noticing, we're getting a lot of younger people that are kind of falling into some of these roles right now. And a lot of them are not understanding the importance of what their job entails. We've got a lot of parts departments that we talk to on a daily basis, and they've been thrown into some of these positions, and they're starting, I think, to see the effects that has with the lack of training. There aren't as many mentors because so many people are getting out of the industry. I feel like that a lot of the younger people are having an issue understanding what their role is. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they're lacking significantly in training right now.
You know what? I don't think it's a new thing, because I talked to parts managers that have been in it, 20, 30 years, and they said they were thrown in, they learned from the previous person, they figured it out, and I think it hasn't changed. We just keep throwing people in, and then those people learn from their mistakes or whatnot, or they figure it out, but they still need the training, because it's like they only know what they know. Or what's the saying? You know what you don't know, or you know what you know. Right?
You figure it out.
Figure it out. Just figure out how to be a parts manager. No, you're right there with the training. And I think NADA has some training for parts managers now, which is, I've heard really great things about. PartsEdge helps parts managers with training and learning. We're structured a little differently, and essentially it's training. But what about I guess the collaboration and the like combining parts and service, because parts and service has always been so divided. And I know this kind of relates to obsolescence, because we got to communicate. So what are some strategies you guys have to better communicate and combine the departments?
So if anybody has seen our first original podcast with Shonda and I, we both have been learning together. So it helps to kind of trust each other and go through that conversation. However, she's also very big on we need to be efficient. So it does help to have that relationship. And for her, she understands what the expectation is. She understands how it affects the process. She shares that with her people so that they understand. We're big on, if something seems off, we'll, kind of get together, kind of have a conversation, just so that everyone understands where we're all coming from. We tend to try not to jump the gun very quickly sometimes, especially if it's something that we're either uneducated on, or it's something that we've kind of maybe been like, well, we've seen this similarly before, but this just doesn't seem right, type of situation. But it's back and forth. If we share a lot of knowledge between each other, and I know I say it every single time I have a conversation, but it's huge for them to understand. I've worked with other service managers who strong arm you and try to I don't care what you have to do. I don't care what this is. I don't care if you have to eat it. I don't
like that. It doesn't work. Yeah.
It does not work.
No,
not at all.
Yeah.
And it makes it very difficult, because those are the ones where you end up, especially when you're a new manager starting out and you're working with someone like that, it's very difficult because you're being told you need to support that role. But at the end of the day, sometimes you can end up in a sticky situation. So it just kind of depends on, one, who you're working with, and two, I guess, the education between and the relationship between the two departments. We're still, after 2 years now, getting better and stronger, and that makes a huge difference. It's really helping with over ordering parts and, kind of just making sure that it's understandable on both sides.
That makes sense. Yeah, making sure the communication and everyone understands. And the worst thing we can do is just, that's the way we've always done it, or we've tried that, it doesn't work. It sounds like you guys have this very open conversation of like, well, and then also not assuming, like, something that comes up that you kind of been through, you're like, you don't jump the gun. You're like, you guys are very, that's empathy. Isn't that empathy when you're thinking of other people, when you're making decisions or doing things? That's empathy, isn't it?
Yeah, empathetic is, yes. And then sympathy is feeling for that person, where empathy is understanding, I think, or something like that.
Well, it's a combination of the two.
Right.
We'll go with that.
There you go.
Okay. I want to wrap up with talking about technology and how just like data can really help with controlling obsolescence. Because that's one thing you brought up was, there's the data is kind of messy when it comes to controlling things. What are things that you're doing to help, I guess, control that? Is there technology that you use, or is there a process? What do you do?
So we use CDK as our DMS. And realistically, my mentor has put in a lot of time and taught us how to write reports in there, like through the English statements. And
Yes.
I probably have 100 different reports in there that I can run to find anything my little heart desires.
Right.
And a lot of it is, running your negative on hands, running your special order inventory every week. I have a report that tells me my fast moving parts and when they're getting low. Stuff like that, stuff that keeps you accountable. That is an easy report to run. Months no sale reports. I have an obsolescence 17 report, so it goes 17 months and out. I have one that I can choose the amount of months I have no sale or no receipt. That runs an obsolescence report. And that's something that would be good to be integrated with ASR systems. Being able to, the ASR systems are great tools, but they are not something that you should rely on. Because they only have the data that they have. Your system's going to have the data that you need.
Yeah. And I think with any DMS, it's all there. It's just getting someone or having that support to create that system to be able to look at the data and make better decisions and all of that. So I think that's what I was trying to get from you, is that it's all there. We just got to organize it and make it all show up so we know how to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think this was a great episode on obsolescence, and I feel like we kind of went all over, but the whole goal was to really provide information and don't fully rely on your ASRs. Please don't do that. And then just process. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is having a process, open communication. Is there anything else I'm missing? Because my notes are a mess.
My biggest thing is share the knowledge. If you know something that someone else does not know, do not put your ego in the way. Share what you know. If somebody new comes in and they have no clue, give them the tools, give them the information so that they can help you also. With your special orders, your processes, your relationships, your misdiagnoses, or anything, the over ordering parts, anything like that. Just make sure everyone is aware of what knowledge is around and how important it is as a whole. So many people are worried about everything being separated and not understanding how everything fits together and how it affects the whole dealership overall.
That you just wrapped it all up. That was perfect. Thank you, Ellen, so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Kaylee. I love it every time.
All right.
you for joining us. PartsEdge, the power tool for your parts department. We hope you're leaving feeling motivated, challenged, and inspired.